begin. Ready or not, here we go. Would someone pop downstairs and get our stragglers? Oh, maybe Zopa. Oh, okay, all right. Thank you. We are all accounted for. Did you grow up in a big family? I made a guess. It was such a big sister thing. I really liked it. Yeah. I'm kind of teasing, but it's a great skill. I have it too. Big sister skills are good. Okay. What are we looking for?
The white privilege paper.
I'll give it to you. Yeah, I might have it here. It might, oh, here it is. Does anyone else need the white privilege article? You don't have it. These are all online, by the way, and you can download them, but here are extra copies. White privilege article, anybody need?
This month's issue of The Sun also, does anyone take The Sun?
The
Sun. It's got a whole interview with this woman on.
Oh, Peggy McIntosh, the recent issue?
Yeah.
Cool. White privilege, we're giving away white privilege. That's the point, to give it away. Oh, yeah, just a sec. We are giving away our white privilege. We are sharing all of our resources. Okay, and I can do it, Linda G.
Okay, I was just trying to position this again.
But it's been handed out since the first time. What people need to do is you can go on the front page of kcc.org. You can click on this class, leave it on for about another week, and you can click on the little button that says read more, and that will lead you to all these handouts. And you can give them to anybody. Please circulate them. Okay, other things, there is a free copy of Mindful of Race book. Someone donated. If you do not have the book, you can come and get that. And there is an announcement. This is Laura's daughter. Laura's daughter is doing a study at PSU on how the media, something in Appalachia, and affects which people and organizations interact there. So she wants to put out a call if you're from Appalachia or just the South in general. She would like to interview you in person or email. So Laura, will you raise your hand there? Talk to Laura if you're interested, available, and if you are streaming, you can email aleberg, aleberg, at pdx.edu. aleberg, that's one word, at pdx.edu to help with that study. Okay, now I got so excited from the discussion that I have to follow up on two things. One was something that happened that I discovered in the dyad, the two-ism that we did. The effect of, we're back on this sheet, superior, inferior. We're going to be working that for a while. The effect of being in that given assumed societal role of superior, and it's an effect of privilege, is to not notice. You don't have to notice. Not notice isms, not notice what it might be like for someone in the inferior role, that's a huge part of the privilege, because we are able to create barriers. We don't really notice them. But here would be the extreme. A gated community, okay? A gated community with just your kind of people in it. And the colors of the houses are chosen between 4 colors. And you don't paint it a different way. And the people of color show up to clean house or do the yard. And you don't much interact with them. And we all who have this superior role in some way have our gated community. Get it? So I don't have to know about this. I can go my whole life not knowing about racism, except I didn't wanna, and except I did notice, and except, bless my parents, my dad was, my dad's father was from the South, and you have to get, I grew up in the 40s and 50s, even pre-civil rights, and when our schools were still apartheid till 54 legally. So I was already 7 by then. My dad used the N-word, and he had certain sayings about black people, which all indicated you cannot trust them. You absolutely cannot trust them. Now, the interesting thing I noticed as a little kid was I didn't know any black people. And my dad would say all these things. In our town, in the 40s and 50s, I think I've told this before, but it bears repeating, my own beloved uncle, Carol, was a deputy sheriff, and he would meet black people at the train station. That's the only place you'd see them. And he would tell them that they were not staying in our town. Even their tickets said they were staying in our town. He'd say, no, you're going on to the big city of Great Falls, 100 miles away. And that would be enforced with violence. I only learned that later from my big brother. I was kind of horrified, but anyway, some of us are really close to this thing. And the other thing was, I was a poor kid, so we were more mixed in with the Native American kids. We were more mixed in, because as you know, the economics are like a big triangle, right? If you're at the top, you can be that 1%, very sheltered. You don't even use a public airport. No. You have your own airport. You don't have to mix with the rest. And you head on down, so middle class, still very privileged, you know. But you get down towards the bottom, you have to mix. I never had a bedroom alone till I went off to college. It was shocking to me. I had grandmas in my bedroom, mothers in my bedroom, foster kids in my bedroom. I never slept in a room without someone else in it. And when I got to a room of my own, I hated it. It was like, what the hell's going on here? You know? Then I became a nanny for some kids with really privilege. And they all had their own everything. Not just your own bedroom, but your own TV, your own fish aquarium, your own this and your own that. And I watched these kids being incredibly lonely. And it was like, this is really interesting. As I moved up being a lawyer, it's like, wow, this class stuff is something real. I had to learn to talk differently, how to drop my ain't no. That did not work in law school. I was still using it when I got to law school. There ain't no way we're gonna do that. And I got the looks and the whatever, and I thought, man, I'm already one of the very few women in the room. Now I have to learn how to talk, because I went to a working class college. So these things are real, and the privilege of not having to engage, not having to know, is a piece of power. And it also, once again, dehumanizes us. It's so nice to go out on the street and talk to a homeless person. Now, I know I'm in a package right now which is so non-threatening. Elder woman, you know. And I don't dress fancy, and I wear my silly little hat that is neon because I don't want to get hit by cars. And so, you know, I'm much less threatening. And so I understand that, so I can go up and chat, you know. And it's pretty interesting, pretty interesting. I don't have internet at home, so I go do my internet at New Seasons in the community room. And there's about 3 people who are homeless who are there every night. And we're just kind of noticing each other like, oh, we're here all the time. One young guy, he's definitely got something going on, but very friendly, very sweet, you know. So it's like, mix it up, you know, however you can. We have to reach out in some ways. The displacement is what can go against that. Sometimes it's travel, going outside the country, but not staying in your pod, but actually, you know, finding out. I always find out where the Catholic churches are, and then I go to church wherever I am, especially in Latin American countries, because you're going to be surrounded with the community. And it's just marvelous. It's like, and because you're there as a Catholic, you know, everybody's just like, okay, you know, so you can find some way, find some human way to displace that privilege. Okay, so we took a look at this inferior one down role, and yeah, that's enough. Just notice those dynamics and be contemplating as we go along, how does it affect you now? You know, how does that conditioning affect you now? My biggest one is class and gender, you know. I can still feel really scared as a woman on the street at night. I love to walk around at night, and sometimes I do, but I am hypervigilant while I do it. I've been sexually assaulted twice in my life, as a child and then as a young woman, and those things leave a lot of fear no matter what you do, therapy and Buddha-wise. And that's true for many, many women, many women. So that is something I just carry. It's like, I do more what I want, obviously. and I'm lucky. Law school made me fight through a lot of inferiority just to be there. It was 2% women. So out of every 100 people, there were 2 women in the class. It was not fun. But we had really cool, good men, friends, who helped us, and we stuck together and got through and became really strong from it, which is something that happens with this inferior role. People, I just talked about what privilege does, but if you're in the inferior roles, this really cool thing happens to you. You become exceedingly resourceful, because you have to be. You have to be. I'm telling you, when the whole thing crashes, I'm going to go to the poor neighborhoods, because those are going to be the people that know how to survive without all the stuff, and that know community, know how to share. We used to share cars. You know, you have to plan the trip. You know, Grandma's going to get dropped here, and Jack's going to get there, and Mom's going to be there. You know, it's just a communal sense that can come. So there's a beautiful thing that happens there. Okay, now we're going to switch, and we're going to look at how we've been conditioned in the superior role. Yeah?
Can you explain this line here, difference equals
Yeah.
difference?
Oh,
That's
thank
it.
you. In the middle of this handout on superior, inferior, there's some words that say difference equals deficient. That means there's an assumption difference is deficient.
From
both sides, from both sides. And I need to change that wording. It's an assumption by both that difference is deficient. Does that help? Thank you for clarifying. I want to actually capture that and trying to make this better. Okay. Now, let's turn and look at our conditioning in the superior role. And before we jump into that, I want to say we need to jump back to the 3 circles, 4 circles, 5 circles. I'm losing track. But, you know, the Buddhist view. And remember that all of these social roles are mere confusion. As Buddhists, as spiritual people, we step back and hold this in the unbounded view. This is just this life. This is just this time. How many bodies have I gone through in 70 years? Teeny tiny cells, little teeny fetus, baby, toddler. You've all had these. We've had so many different bodies already. What's the big deal about different bodies? No problem. And when we die, gonna get another one. Likely, unless you're fully awakened and you don't take one from craving or confusion, but you take a body from pure bodhicitta, like possibly the Dalai Lama has, or the Karmapa, Kala Rinpoche, our teachers, who come back in a form that can really help pull people out of the suffering. But most of us, well, I'm talking about myself, probably going to get another go-round, hopefully human, hopefully with Dharma, hopefully with good Dharma friends, good teachers, and hopefully with more chutzpah to practice than this life. So I'm talking about myself again. But all of these social roles are mere confusion, and we need spiritually to hold them in an unbounded view. People are in these forms now for this life, not always. Maybe I was Native American child last life. Maybe I was something else. And that can help break down these things of, oh, I'm so different, and I make this being white or person of color so solid. So we have to do these simultaneously. And yes, it's contradictory in our minds. Like it's unbounded, but I still have to work it. Yeah, that's what it is. Relative, ultimate, always together. Relative, ultimate. I'm going to ask for questions to be held at this point. And after this exercise, we're going to have more. So now, let's contemplate a way that you were born into or assigned a superior role. Again, you can use race, class, gender. You can also use religion. Protestant is very much superior in this country, so much that it's written on our dollar bills. In God we trust. Catholics know that's not their God. It's so clear. How many Catholic presidents have we had? One, and they killed them. I remember that. And the jokes about when Kennedy became president, you'd have to turn in your bowling balls for a rosary for the Statue of Liberty. That was actually funny. But Catholics were really, it was a big deal for me. I was 15 when he got elected. We were a minority, and it was like, man, we got a guy in there. Irish Catholic, too, the best. Okay, so, sorry. Let's go to your superior role. And I want to ask, especially, first identify it, be really clear. Okay, white. Secondly, how did you get enlisted in the idea of the superiority? Being white is not inherently superior, believe me. It's not inherently inferior. How did you get enlisted from the early days in the idea that it was superior? Or if you're a man, How did you get enlisted in that idea? There's thousands of examples, and I want you to pull them up in your own experience. Make sense? And third thing to contemplate, what would happen if you resisted those roles? So that's how was it enforced? So what's your superior role? How'd you get enlisted by messages, modeling, etc.? And if you resisted it, how was it enforced? If you're, for example, a white person that steps out and acts anti-racist, or even as a kid asks questions, okay? Just find that for a couple minutes for yourself. How many need more time? Put your hand up. You need more time to contemplate. Okay, partner up with someone you have not talked to and just share about this. Might have to move around. Raise your hand if you need a new partner. You need someone else. Linda, who are you with? Oh, okay. Good. like if you try and step away from your group, what would happen to you? Like you oppose the conditioning.
Yeah, I'm more conscious of the upside of that. Where I recognize that I'm not as privileged as
3 more minutes. 3 more minutes. 3 more minutes.
Yeah, I think I did.
Try to wrap up. So we tried in that short time to do some really fancy footwork, which is first, identify one way you're in a superior role. Secondly, look at how you were enlisted. In other words, how did it occur? You might just end up saying, I was born in, there I was, with all the rewards and whatever, or downside too. And how was it enforced? Meaning, if you try to resist that role, what might happen in that group? So obvious ones, for example, I was about 12 when the civil rights movement really heated up in the South. And I saw what happened to white people on TV who would go down and stand up for people of color. Some got killed right away. That was pretty impressionable on a 12-year-old. Like, you step out and you do something really, really effective, you might die. The water hoses, the dogs, the everything. So intense messages, but those are kind of on the extreme end. The messages come from your family. As I've said, when I asked questions of I wouldn't ask my dad, but of my mother about black people, she would just say, shh, shh. That's a huge message, huge message. No need to talk about that. Don't talk about that. And she was really trying to, she wasn't so blatantly racist. She was much a very curious person. She had friends who were Native American, Korean. As I said, not black friends. We didn't let them live in our town. But it was always kind of, don't notice that. Don't notice that. And that's a privilege. So let's hear back from people. Were those common to you, that if you resist the message, you resist the conditioning, the biggest message often is you will be cast out of your group. You cannot belong here. That was a huge message to me. And if you go along, you get rewarded. And I watched my son as he went through 6th, 7th grade conditioning, being a male, the punishment that came as he would not engage with the violent, rough play. He really got targeted. And always there's that homophobia under there for men. If you're kind of a soft guy, you're going to be gay, and then all bets are off. We don't have to protect you at all, So going against the conditioning is really quite difficult for us even now. So let's hear back, some of you, any of that familiar or confusing? Rosemarie, where's the mic? It's coming.
Thank you. So I'm just noting that I have like a knot in my stomach from this conversation right now. Just noticing that it's physically painful.
Thank you for noticing and sharing. You can go slow.
Yeah, and I might cry.
That's all right.
So I was telling Linda that when I grew up, basically derogatory comments about black people were kind of the stuff of the dinner table, pretty much day in and day out.
Yeah.
My father was a firefighter, and he worked in New York City, And so he had some experiences with African Americans and others, and he would come home and talk about them very negatively and use the N-word all the time.
Yeah.
And I just come to grips with the fact that I'm still angry about that. I mean, he's been dead for a couple of years, but yeah. Well, that was more intense than I expected.
Take your time. This is what is real about the work.
I feel like he poisoned me.
It does poison us.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we don't have to stay stuck.
Yeah. And I was also saying that when I had my first child, I had a black obstetrician, and I just took so much crap from my parents and my brother for like the first person touching your baby's body is black, and it was horrible. It was horrible. And my mother came to the hospital and she insulted my doctor. And it was really hard. And I think the feeling of it was like that I was cast out. You know, like, how dare you do that? How dare you do that? And that was what it was like with my parents.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's a really heartfelt illustration of what happens. That sense of, I'll be cast out of my family if I go ahead with this, like a black obstetrician, you know, and also of the work ahead of us of working towards understanding the suffering, our own, the one in the targeted group, but the suffering of our parents who passed this on, not realizing the harm, not realizing at all, because it's generational. My dad got it from his dad. And I got some from him, but the 60s kind of shredded all that for me, you know. It was like, don't have to live in that, you know. So we have lots of emotional work to do on these issues too. And if we work them deep enough, and I'm so glad you spoke up, and you just made an incredible model of the method that Ruth King uses, and we're going to move on to that after another exercise, which is notice your bodily feelings. And you started right out with that. Thank you. I have a knot here. Because those bodily feelings, or like for me, it's often some kind of trembling, like, oh boy, this has energy and fear, and I need to notice that and care for myself. Before I used to jump over that energy and fear and go straight into the fire and then make more confusion. I had a motive to be anti-racist, but I was blaming people and calling them on the carpet and talking about them behind their backs, which does not work. Because it has to be all of us. There isn't any other way. And Buddhism knows that. That's the equanimity piece. No one gets out alive. And so in the meantime, we have to act like that's true with each other, that we're all going to die, and that we can be kind towards everyone. We can find a way to see their humanness and their hurt. Would someone else like to share? Maybe someone who has not talked today. If not, it's fine. I'm going to look for somebody who hasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, this is in the category.
Oh, thank you. I think this is in the realm of what. When I first moved to Portland in '92, I was looking immediately for a job, and I came from the Bay Area, and I was used to a whole different climate when it came to race. Lots of mixing and hanging out, and it was so different when I came up here. So I was being interviewed, and they said, well, you know, we'd like to consider you for the supervisor position. I was fresh out of college. I was like, it just seems like, you know, we think you can do it, whatever. Well, it was a racially diverse group, and I didn't know this at the time, but I'm waltzing in. I'm a white woman. I'm educated. I've come from California. Somehow that had seemed to hold a little mystique, whatever. Well, within a couple of weeks, I found out that an African-American woman who'd been there for years with the same educational level was passed over for the same job. And then at pretty much the same time, I also realized a little bit of why they might not have wanted to hire her, but just for personal reasons. But still, I was like in an untenable situation, and that's all I'll share. And that is that I felt guilt. I felt very aware of what had happened, you know, and why I was probably chosen, and it was not comfortable, and it didn't have a good end, but still, it's just one of those things that I came up against. That was like, wow, that so in your face.
Yeah, another very good example of how, sure, we're in the one-up position, we're getting handed rewards, but our humanness is constantly being diminished. Like, what do I do with this? What do I do with this now? You know, and the feelings of the others who are in the one down toward us, which are, of course, as humans, anger, frustration, distrust. It's really a tricky thing working through this. But as we see it, that's the way out. This deep looking. I'm just so happy people are seeing those kind of parts and not being stuck in, oh, I'll go back to just treat everyone as an individual, or go back to my happy circle here. My happy circle, or my angry looking at ism circle, you know. Those are just not helpful. It's a complex thing, and we've all been enlisted. We've all been pushed into it. We've seen the damage on our family. I've shared that recent damage. I watched my brother get very sick, and his wife, who has now died, get very sick, and he would not bring in home health workers because they were all brown. He fired 3 in a row. I will not have brown people in my house. And he used one of our dad's old sayings, they'll take over. They'll take over your house. It was a perfect example of how he's in the superior role and it's hurting him as a human. I was like, man, you want an example of how racism hurts white people? It's not the same as the power structure, but look at it. It's just right there in front of you. We get crazy. The isms are crazy. They make us crazy. They're full-out delusions. Of course, we're always having the delusion of a self, so that's the deeper delusion, and another hallucinating all the time that there's all this separation. But this is delusion on top of delusion, and we need to, and we are. I'm so happy we're doing this. We're peeling it away. It's going to be very uncomfortable. So that's why we go back to things like what Pema Chodron said, you know. We show up, we be honest, we be present, and the outcome is beyond our control. But being honest and caring towards ourselves is really important. And towards our families, confusion. I got to tell a story on my dad because he's long dead, but he's telling me, tell it. When he was about 50, we moved to a different town, and we moved to the West Coast, actually. We moved to Auburn, Washington, out of Montana. Montana was much more like the South, you know, those really kind of old-fashioned attitudes towards women, people of color, etc. And now we were in a more sophisticated kind of thing, more mixing, West Coast, more urban. And my dad got a job where he got his first African-American boss, and Mr. Powell. And he was kind of freaked out. But by then, he was older, and he was kind of like, I get it's not okay to use these words anymore or say things. But I was still at home and in between college. And he was kind of tiptoeing around about it, but I knew he was really freaked. And he came home after 3 days, and he said to me, I can't believe it. I said, what? He said, Mr. Powell is the best boss I've ever had. And I said, cool, Dad. Really cool. And they made a bond. He worked for him for about 10 years, and my dad just loved him, and he loved my dad. And it was like, I was like, even then, I was like, not Buddhist, but I was like, I'm really glad he cleaned that up before he dies. You know, he got a chance to clean that up, you know. So there's always some hope. Okay, let's move on because time's moving on. And the next part is, let's look at the Bodhisattva model. Okay, your beautiful Bodhisattva model. When I wasn't Buddhist, this was called the ally model. As you work with the isms, you'll find that phrase a lot, the ally model, A-L-L-Y, that we can step out of being victims, we can step out of being oppressors, we can step into this third role, the ally bodhisattva model. And let's just take a quick look at this. If you start on the upper right-hand corner, use the bodhisattva approach. Of course, we want to do this in all areas of our lives, but especially with isms, this will help us. The 4 immeasurables, loving kindness, equanimity, the 6 perfections, generosity, wisdom, joyous effort. This is a joyous effort. We have to remember that. This isn't a heavy-duty thing. We're liberating ourselves and others. What could be more better, as we say. Then you head down the circle, increase your own personal mindfulness and healing and mindfulness of others. So how can you do that? That's going to be the next thing. But you can do these exercises over and over, have discussions with people. One of my favorite passive ways to work on racism, I read tons of novels. I read them. I probably read 3 novels a week. This is a confession. They don't take me very long because of law school. I do skip long descriptions. But read novels by people from other races and people from other countries. That's the only kind of novels I read because their perspective on the world is totally different. I've read a novel by, you know, the kite runner, the guy from Afghanistan. That was a perfect novel. I just read one by a guy from Australia who is white, but working with the native population there. Read a novels by Toni Morrison, T-O-N-I, African-American author, fantastic author. Read novels by Native American women. And the novels are fantastic. They're beautifully written, and you are thrust into this other world. You know, I just finished one by an Iranian author, can't remember the name, but you can just Google the library, Iranian authors, you know, Iraqi authors, and you are thrust there, and it's a very wonderful passive way to learn and open your head up. So that's just like a small thing, but also the example of displacing yourself, throw yourself into an uncomfortable situation. Where you're the different one, do these contemplations, join groups that are activist, and bring the equanimity there. That's a gigantic thing to do, because usually it's fear and anger, fear and anger. Bringing that equanimity can really help. So there's a 1,000 ways to do this, and as we go forward with the smaller group, we'll be exploring those. Like, how can we actually do this with our current life? You don't have to add a bunch of stuff on. It's just find what you already do and do it a little differently. Okay, then we move to understanding how institutionalized prejudice and power operates. I'm going to put a plug in again for this National Geographic, April 2018. Please order it. The entire issue is on race. The scientific, updated parts about race. Here's a great fold out on the different colors, what are called black. And it's got about institutional racism in it, intermarriages, how they're on the rise, and people's reactions to them. White racists, what's going on with them. It's just amazing, amazing. Youth, what's happening with youth, quite different.
What was the date on that?
April 2018, special issue on race. Oh, really?
I bet you can get it digitally.
Oh, yeah, and also Check Powell's, Check magazine stores. There's still a couple of them in Portland. So it's marvelous, though, just marvelous. But there's many ways to understand it. I'm really encouraging people, look at your own life. Like, is it Maura? Mariah. Mariah's example. How has it already functioned in your life? What privileges did you get? What ways did you get cast aside? One example, when I graduated from law school, 1975, the professors openly told us, for the women, do not apply to the downtown law firms. You will not be hired. Not because lawyers discriminate against you, but because the clients aren't ready for women lawyers. And there was no lawsuit to be filed, because the sex discrimination cases had not been founded. Prior to 1964, in this very country, and I think everyone here was alive, if you were a person of color, you could be told, I'm firing you because you're black, and you couldn't go to court. In 1963, amazing, huh? It's the law. Until 1954, Oregon had on its books a law against intermarriage. People did it. It was unenforced, but it was on the books. And many neighborhoods had what were called these covenants that ran with the deed. And you were not to have, this law is right there, no people of African heritage, Hawaiian heritage, or Asian should be on the premises except as servants. And your covenant, when you sold your house, that covenant ran with that sale. Now, of course, people just started ignoring it, but it created certain neighborhoods that are still pretty white. Yeah, just one quick thing.
A friend of mine who lives in Lake Oswego is not allowed to sell his house to a Chinese person, according to his current, it's in the deed at this time.
Yeah, some of these covenants are still running. And the joke used to be Lake Oswego was Lake No Negro. I know because I've been around here 40 years. They live out at Lake No Negro. Anyway, okay, we can come up with lots of examples, but that's the point, is to come up with some examples. Look at Oregon law. We had an openly Klan mayor of the city of Portland in the 30s. And there's a famous photo, infamous, of them wearing their Klan robes out in front of the city hall. One really good place to find all of this is a documentary called Local Color at PBS, or OPB. Local Color, it's just an hour. It's a fantastic overview of the historical underpinnings in Portland. Why we're so white.
There were ads in the paper asking for Klan members, like as late as the 20s.
Yeah, into the 1920s, ads in the paper, and now, of course, we have some folks in Vancouver that are ascribing to those beliefs and coming down to Portland. What are they called? The Proud Boys. And they are listed as a violent white racist group by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and I heard the FBI has now listed them too. So it's not gone. Okay, so we're still moving along on our Bodhisattva model despite all these things, because we have to know it. We have to break through our privilege and say this is our background. And the last one then is take action of body, speech, and mind. Then you notice this is a cycle. So the arrow keeps pointing. After you take action, you have to go back and go, wow, I did that, but man, did I get pissed off. Excuse my French. But, man, did I act that way. Oh, I got to go back to loving kindness. Okay, Proud Boys, I want them free. I do. I want them liberated. I want them to have everything they need in their lives to be happy, even from self-interest, because if they had that, they wouldn't do that. So you can do it totally out of self-interest. I want Donald Trump completely liberated, and Putin too, and the guy in the Philippines. Tomorrow, today, why would I not want that for them?
I think it would be a great movie plot. He's abducted, he's taken someplace, he's given ecstasy, he's put in
Okay, we're not going to go there right now. But it could make your enemy happy. That's what Shanti Deva says. Make your enemy happy. Don't even label them enemy. See them as your naughty little brother that you want to get happy. Okay, and then you go back around. So now, a quick dyad, that means one-on-one, new person. So those of you who are shy, get up and go say hi to someone and talk about what you're going to do. What action are you going to take next? What very specific step you're going to take? You're going to read a novel? You're going to do this one, go through the exercises? You're going to go join a group? What you going to do? Who does not have a partner? Put your hand up. Peter needs someone. Hello, we need another partner. Laura, maybe here. Oh, we're still looking. Go ahead, Lynn. I think we're still looking over there. We don't need three ways.
Specific plans other than to finish reading that.
Try to wrap up. 2 more minutes.
Saying,
Hey, Linda.
They'll stay with them. They won't be posted on the front page, but they can still search for it.
Oh, just through the system. Okay, great. That way I can tell people they're still there. Yeah, and as we move along with the group, people can still access. Okay, great.
And actually, if you have that group and have the dates, then I can just put it on the calendar. And on the calendar, I can put it on the link
Okay,
there.
on the
Yeah.
Okay, okay, good, thanks.
yeah, that's just the current crop.
It's fun.
Well, may you get over your cold.
I love it. It's fun watching, and also because of mixing the dyads, seeing people get to know each other in a different way, it just builds some community.
Yes.
You know,
That's great.
kind of weaves people so they're like, oh, I know that person.
And I also like the introductory going around and saying something.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've always done that in other groups, and that's what I said. The PC has started doing that itself. Usually in appreciation, they say appreciate something of the person or the dyad, and it's helped a lot. Oh, that person is Thomas Keneally. He has amazing things. There are a lot about war, so you got to be T-H-O, Thomas, Thomas, and Keneally, K-E-A-N-E-L-L-Y, something like that. You'll find it. He's Australian. He's amazing. He wrote Schindler's List.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. It's the Schindler's List author. Yeah, that guy. It's amazing. And this one's called Flying Hero Class. An odd title, but he gets in a hijacked plane with some people from native people from Australia, and and Palestinians are hijacking, and all this cultural stuff unfolds about how different groups would deal with this crisis. He often does that. He puts people in crisis and then this incredible diversity. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I would like to start capturing them, but that's on my list of things to do. Okay, please come back. Okay. If we have time, we will hear back from you, but I want to do the very last exercise instead. So I'm just going to trust that every single one of you has something you know you're going to do. Okay? That's so important because neither Buddhism nor the isms work as something you take the papers and put them on the shelf and go off doing same. We know that, right? So whatever you agreed to do, you called to mind, do that, and then do the next thing and the next thing, and keep working through this cycle, remembering your own goodness, knowing that you won't do it perfectly, and being kind to yourself about that. Being a learner is so important. Okay, so the very last exercise is coming from this book, Mindful of Race, by Ruth King, African-American author extraordinaire. Remember, we have a free copy up here. Someone wants to come up at the end and get it. Yeah, we'll wait till the end. Someone wants to come up and get this, it'll be right here. It's a gift. But you can make, if you have the wherewithal, you can make a donation to the bookstore. So let's just wait till the end, okay? Now, we are going to look at Ruth King's approach to the emotions that rise, okay? So as we do this, has everyone noticed emotions arise? That was the response I wanted. No, I felt nothing. And sometimes it's true, we get numbed. And part of the being enlisted in the isms is to be numb. No emotion rose. I wouldn't dare let it. So I might be cast out. But Ruth has a practice through her Buddhist practice called RAIN, R-A-I-N. Recognize what's going on in you. I like this second step, allow it. This is so much tied in with our shamatha, our calm abiding. Just see what rises, or as Rosemary so beautifully shared, I feel it. Then allow it. Just, there it is. Pain, stress, allow it. Then investigate it, which is a little trickier, but it's really contemplating, like the kind of questions we've had. How did I get all tied up in this? What kind of nature does it have? And of course, you'll see it has no nature. Everything is just thoughts and emotions and sensations, right? How long do each of those last? Try to make a thought last. That's one of my favorite exercises. Giraffe. It's already gone. Right? And then you can have a next moment of a new giraffe, but you can't have the first giraffe. That's gone. That's thoughts. And yet we go to war over them. Oh my God, how crazy. Okay, well, anyway, we're getting rid of that. Okay, so investigate, become curious about whatever it is you're thinking about. Get curious. And then the fourth step is nurture yourself. How can I care for this thing that's rising in me? Like, let's take the thing of the conditioning we get about racism. We can end up very upset at our parents, our teachers, whoever. Or the thing we got about sexism as men, we can be very scared about. Do women really hate us? And do I hate them? I mean, really, these are important questions to think about. So that's a more contemplate. And then the nurture, how do I care? What would support my releasing this? For example, she pulls up things like use a mantra. I pulled up, remember your bodhicitta, remember your equanimity. So here's how I'll guide us through these 4 steps. It'll be short because we're getting close to closing. But it gives you a sense of how to work it on your own or how we'll go ahead in the small group. So the first step will be this. Call to mind some memory or thought that upset you as you did the inferior superior work today. Okay, we did, how did I get enlisted, inferior, superior? Just pick one, not both of those. Get very clear. Something where you felt like little roiled up, okay? Shouldn't be hard to find, but keep looking. That's step 1. Get clear on one memory, one incident. Okay, I'm going to assume you've got it. Second, we're going to use the RAIN steps. Recognize what's happening in you right now as you call that incident memory to mind. So you want to just be very inward. This is not an outward exercise. Go inward, it's a meditation. Recognize. What you're recognizing is what's happening in you. Body sensations. So key. Where do you tense? Where are you numb? And don't cling, just let them pass through. You're not so much thinking about the story. The story's there, but you're noticing mindfulness of body, mindfulness of mind. Don't cling to any aspect. See its emptiness, but notice it. Then move to step 2, allow. Can I be with what is happening without judging, no resistance, and no interpreting? Just, this is what this is. So we have to relax with whatever shows up. Let me be with this. Yes, I see this. This is what this is in me. I can let this be here. I can stay with it. It's okay. And as you're with it, notice its impermanence. If we don't grab and we don't add on, it goes by and something else occurs. Then we can turn to step 3, investigate or contemplate. How did I get tied up with this distress? See if you can see the steps. Also noticing that distress is completely empty. No solidity. Just thoughts and sensations changing all the time. But calling to mind the story again. Where did my reaction come from? Was it automatic? Am I bound by automatic reactions? Can I see it? Can I see its true nature? What beliefs or assumptions do I have that have added to my own suffering, no matter what others were doing? In other words, what do I bring to the party? Be very kind with yourself as you look. I am just a suffering being who's trying to become free. And I'm on my own side about that. And the fourth step in the RAIN, RAIN method is nurture. What can support me to release this? What dharma can I rely on? What kindness to myself can I bring? Can I move towards anything that rises in me with equanimity and see that's what arises in those I label difficult or enemy. We're just the same. We suffer and we want happiness. We don't know how to get it. Just like me. I am just like them. And I'm going to close with these words of Ruth. Nothing is personal, permanent, or perfect in samsara. Nothing is personal, permanent, or perfect. We make those up, and then we have a lot of problems. The flow of the reality is not personal, permanent, or perfect. And that way we can relax. Okay, dear friends, wow. I can't believe I got through all I wanted to accomplish. That was the most important part, was me accomplishing. Nothing about all of you. Okay, we're going to pray together. And we're going to rejoice. Let's just incredibly rejoice. Wow. You don't know how long I wanted to do this, put together Buddhism with my anti-racism work, and how scary it was. Oh my God, I went through so many things in my room. I would have to run outside and run around the block because it was like, this is too scary. And you did it. It's us. It's us. And all my teachers, and my dear friends, Cliff and Guadalupe, who I did 20 years of work with. And we were dynamite as a, Irish American, African American, and Latina team. 20 years. So it's lovely to see the work come back. Okay, let's do our dedication. Everybody got it? It's on the prayer sheet. Without harming them, may I always stop all beings in all worlds who wish to commit harmful deeds. By this virtue, may I quickly realize Mahamudra and lead all sentient beings to that same supreme state. Just in case there's confusion, Mahamudra means that state where we have a lot of clarity about appearances, including isms, etc., and yet we completely understand it's illusory. And therefore, we have so much room, unbounded, limitless space and time to become liberated. Okay, thank you so very much. And I will be putting out, I don't want to lose momentum, so I may set up a group later in December. Whoever can come, we'll just meet on a Saturday for an hour and a half or so. And I'll just put out a notice. So come, you don't have to sign up. It's not registration. Okay? And we'll keep going. All right, thank you. Oh, and the book? Oh, somebody got it. Good. And